Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've got an interesting product to show you today. This is the Cetus Kit from Betafpv. It's an FPV starter kit, and that means it comes with a drone. The drone looks like this. You could fly this in the house or around the yard. That's kind of what this is for. It also comes with FPV goggles, so you can get that first-person view while you're flying around the house. It's got a radio controller, 2 batteries, some accessories, and this carrying case. So it's designed to be everything you need to get started in FPV, all in one box, and there's a lot of stuff in here for the price. Last I saw it was like $160 US. So I think some of you are probably going to be interested in this product, and that's why I'm making the video. I want to share some of my perspective with you and some of my experience with this, and there will be a chance to win one of these. I'm going to give away this kit. If you look behind me, I don't need any more drones, but maybe one of you can get into FPV with this kit, or maybe you have a kid or somebody in your life who you would want to give this to. So keep watching. I'll tell you how you can win that at the end of the video. And I have to tell you, this kit is actually kind of special to me now because I decided to give one of these to my younger son. And I had given him some lessons before. He expressed interest in FPV because he sees me doing it, which is cool. But I gave him a few basic lessons, trying to fly around the house, and he would, fly and have fun, but crash out a few seconds later, and it was kind of frustrating. That is totally normal. There's kind of a learning curve, and you have to push past that initial learning curve. And he just, wasn't into it enough to put the time in to push past that learning curve. So he never really got to the good stuff, right? The good stuff with a drone like this is exploring the house, having that sense of flight, seeing chair legs and tables and going through it and all that kind of stuff. And he never really got to that point, which is kind of a shame. But with this drone, there's a new flight control mode. It uses additional sensors on the bottom to measure altitude and to look down at the ground and measure movement relative to the ground so that you're not drifting all over the place. And I wasn't sure how well that would work out, but I gave it to my son and he tried it out and he just loved it. He was having so much fun right off the bat, having just way more success than he had ever had flying FPV. And so that's awesome. I wouldn't want to fly that way myself. I would want, more control and more speed. But to be able to have a positive experience right off the bat, I think that is kind of what this drone is for. And here's what he had to say about that. You're doing great. Have you ever stayed in the air that long before?
No. You're the best drone lessons ever.
Before we go on, I do want to make it clear that Betafpv sent these kits to me for testing. I did not buy them with my own money. They actually sent 2 kits at different stages in development because they wanted my feedback, which is totally cool. Thank you, Betafpv. But they did not pay me to make this video. They don't know what I'm going to say. They have no input on my reviews. Nobody ever gets to control the content of my videos except for me. So with that out of the way, I want to show you this drone and the kit. I'll show you what comes in the kit, and there's a lot of details that I'm not going to cover. If you want to see the official product page, that's down below. I'm just going to go over the stuff that I think is most important to cover and most interesting. And then I'll show you the flight control modes, especially the new beginner mode on this drone. It worked great for my son, but it has some weird quirks, so we'll go over that. And then if you're interested in winning one of these kits, stick around to the end of the video. I'll tell you how you can do that. Actually, let me show you the flight control modes first, because the new beginner mode on this drone is kind of the most unique thing. So you've got 4 switches on the top. This one on the bottom left is arming, but it will only arm if the throttle is all the way down. That's a safety feature. This is the mode switch. So the bottom position is N for normal. You can also switch it to S for sport and M for manual, and you can see those options on the OSD. So normal mode is the beginner mode, that they call it normal mode. And so what's going to happen is the left stick is not going to control throttle directly. It's going to control basically altitude and tell it when I want to take off. And then the right stick, instead of controlling the angle, it's going to control the movement. So right stick forward means I want to move forward, I want to move back. And if you're not touching the right stick, it means you want to stay in one place. So if I put it in normal mode and I arm it and I slowly raise the throttle, nothing happens. I raise it some more, nothing happens. I raise it to almost halfway and then it takes off. Now I'm not touching the controls at all, and it is just trying to hold its position. You can see it doesn't hold it exactly. It kind of shimmies around a little bit, but there's a slight breeze, and so it is holding its position. Now if I raise the throttle a lot, I can get it to move up. I can also push forward on the sticks to make it move forward, back, side to side. And if I want it to land, I can just put the throttle all the way to 0. Throttle is at 0, it's taking itself down, and then it lands, and I can disarm. If I switch to the next mode, they call that sport mode, and that's what most of us would call angle mode or level mode. In that mode, you're going to have full control of the throttle using the left stick, and the right stick is going to control the angle. So instead of trying to control the movement, it's going to control the angle of the drone. If you let go of the right stick, it's going to level out. And then if you go into manual mode, now you got full control of the throttle and yaw, that part's the same, but you've also now got control of the rate of change of pitch and roll. But in manual mode, it will not recenter itself. So that's what most of us would call acro or rate mode. It's cool that you could start to learn acro mode on a drone like this, but I don't think it's really the best tool. I think you'd be better off learning in a simulator. And unfortunately, the rates are kind of slow, so it's hard to do any acrobatics with this drone. You'll be turning too slow like this, which means you spend too much time upside down, you fall too much, and it just doesn't have the power to pull out of those dives. So if you want to learn acro, I suggest you start in the simulator, and by the time you're ready to go do it in real life, I think you'll want a more capable drone than this. At least one that has a higher power to weight ratio. I've tried flying it in that beginner assisted mode, the one they call normal mode. And for myself, I don't like it. It feels really weird to me because the way that it maintains its position is that it's making adjustments to pitch and roll. Adjustments big enough for you to see in FPV for sure. So when I'm moving and it's moving in a way that's different than my sticks, for me, because I'm used to having control, that feels really weird. And it happens when you're moving forward as well, because it's trying to follow a straight line. But the thing is, it doesn't always have a perfect view of the ground. So that's what I want to show you. That's why we're in this room. I'm going to show you what happens over this black carpet. In general, if it can see the ground and the ground is well lit and has good detail, then it'll do okay, as long as you don't go too high. The manual says not to go more than 3 meters off the ground, or it could behave erratically. If you wanted to go that high, you're going to want to switch it into sport mode probably, or manual mode. But yeah, if it can't see, if it's dim indoor lighting, or you've got just solid color carpet, or worse, dark carpet like this, it's really gonna have trouble tracking, and I wanna show you what happens. I turned it down to just one light, so it's even a little bit dimmer in here just to exaggerate what happens. But if I fly over the carpet, it's gonna try to hold its position, but you see how it's drifting? And then when I put something under it, did you see it move? Now it can see the edge. Maybe you can see the edge of that. If I move it out of the way, it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what to do. Oh! And then it sees an object. Did you see how much it moves? It's really kind of weird. Now, if this was a first-time pilot and they stayed in the air this long, they'd probably be excited to still be in the air. You get your bearings. You're not smashing into the ceiling or flipping over in the ground, which is what usually happens for people who, you know, haven't mastered that throttle management yet. So it's cool for that, but there are a lot of weird anomalies. If in the end you decide that optical tracking is causing more problems than it solves, then of course you can switch into sport mode or manual mode, but there is another workaround which I want to show you. The drone has a menu that you can access through the on-screen display and the controller. If you center both sticks and then left stick left, right stick up, that will activate the menu. And there's a couple things under here. If you go into config, you can see that there's a TOF, that's the time of flight sensor that measures the altitude, and there's also the optical sensor. If you turn the optical sensor off, then go down back and save, now it will disable that function and it will still help you manage the altitude. It won't try to track horizontally. Maybe the optical tracking will work great in your environment, but maybe it won't, so at least you know how to turn it off. I think a good feature of a beginner drone is that it should be super easy to get started, but still have room to grow into, you know, like so you can develop your skills, get better over time, and have more and more fun over time. I think that would be ideal. I'm not sure how this one will do, but I'm gonna put it in sport mode, put those high rates on, and I'm gonna throw up some gates here in my house and just see how much fun I can have with this. Now, I've got a lot of experience flying these, but let's see what it can do. And to make it a good test, I'm going to fly with the goggles and the radio that it comes with. So I'm flying with only what's provided in the kit, but there's no DVR in the goggles, so I'm going to record using my Immersion RC Power Play hooked up to my regular goggles. So that's where the DVR is going to come from. So let's have some fun. Well, that was my first time trying to race with this drone, and it's not sold as a racing drone. This is a beginner kit, but racing is a good way to test out the performance, and I'm kind of curious what you thought of the performance. You can let me know down in the comment section below. I'm guessing that I probably made it look pretty good, but again, I have a lot of experience, and I want to let you know that that was not easy. Specifically, this drone did not make it very easy. Unfortunately, it wasn't really flying all that well. I could feel the yaw authority kind of slipping sometimes. I could feel it kind of shimmy sometimes. I don't know if the PID tune needs some work. So I don't know. I was not impressed with the performance of this for that kind of fast forward flight. I think the most interesting thing about this drone is the beginner mode. If you knew for sure that you were not going to use that beginner mode, then I would suggest you get a different drone. I think you'd be better served with something like a Meteor 65 or a Mobula 6. But that beginner mode did help my son have more fun in FPV, so I think it has a place as a starter kit. The good news is that even if you outgrow this drone, you can continue to use the radio and the goggles with other drones, so let me show you those components now. Here is the kit up close, and the first thing I'll point out is that it actually came with a printed user manual. And to my surprise, it's actually really good. The illustrations are good, the English is easy to understand, kind of covers everything you would need to know. A lot of stuff in this hobby comes with no instructions at all, and you have to go online or watch YouTube videos to figure it out. So I don't know, having this is actually kind of a nice touch, especially if you were going to give this as a gift. Here are the video goggles. It's very basic, but it gets the job done. There's a single screen inside of there, which you can see if I flip it on. And the screen is actually in the roof, pointing down, and there's a mirror in there, and you can kind of see that if you angle like this. So you want to make sure that you're looking straight into it to get just a single view and not that double image. But it works. And then you've got a few buttons here to adjust. The battery's internal and it charges with USB-C. And the antennas are internal as well. I think there's a patch antenna in the front. And that means that you'll get the best reception if the goggles are pointing towards where you're flying. Now the receiver in here is a standard 5.8 gigahertz receiver, and that means that you can actually use these goggles with any drone that has analog video. So if you get additional drones in the future, you will be able to use this. If I plug in the drone real quick, you can see I'm still just seeing static on here. And that's one thing that is kind of annoying about these goggles. They don't seem to remember what channel they were on last. And you can hit the center button. There's a whole menu that I'm not going to go into that can show you how to see all of the different bands and channels. The easiest thing is if you just press and hold for a few seconds. It will then scan. And I find that it's pretty good. There we go. Pretty good at actually finding the right channel. It's hard to expect too much of these goggles because they are very inexpensive, but there is one feature that I wish they had, and that would be a DVR. There is no way to record your flight and see it later or share it with other people, and that's kind of a shame. Here is the radio controller. This is just a protector for the sticks. You can see it's shaped like a gamepad controller. I think most people are probably going to hold it like this and use thumbs, but that'll be familiar if you're used to gamepad controllers. So it's actually pretty nice, even though this is one of the cheapest radios in the hobby. They call it the Light Radio 2 SE. And there was a Light Radio 2 before that. If you look down in the video description text, there will be a link. I reviewed the Light Radio 2 in detail, so you can check that out. There's a separate video where I did range testing. This isn't just for the drone that comes in the kit. There's a lot of other drones that you could fly with this same radio. So if you're interested, go check that out. The main complaint that I had about the original radio was the battery. There used to be a 2S LiPo that would go in this compartment. Now this compartment doesn't do anything because they moved the battery to be internal. And it's now lithium ion internally. I think it's 1,000 milliamp hours, so it's several times bigger. So the nice thing is that the battery lasts a lot longer than the original radio, so that's great. Of course, the downside is when the battery does get drained, you can't just swap it out. You do have to charge it up, and it charges with USB-C, just like everything else in this kit. You can also use this to connect it to a computer and use this as an input controller for flight simulators. The motors are 7x16 millimeter brushed motors. Having brushed motors helps keep the price of this kit down. Brushless motors and ESCs cost a little bit more, although they are more responsive and they tend to last longer. If you fly this for enough hours of flight time, you will find that eventually the performance starts to degrade. But fortunately, these motors aren't too expensive to replace. You can do it yourself. It's just plug and play with these little connectors down here. One feature that brushless motors have is the ability to reverse directions, so that if you land upside down, you can actually flip yourself over with a lot of drones. You can't do that with this one, so if you land upside down, you're just going to have to get out of your chair and go pick it up. When I'm flying with my kids, I'm often the one running around flipping over drones. The battery goes into the tray like this and just plugs in with this connector. This connector is called the BT 2.0, and it's kind of a curse and kind of a blessing. It's designed by Betafpv, and it's great because it makes a good connection to the battery. It delivers plenty of current without voltage sag, so that's the good part. The bad part is you pretty much have to get Betafpv batteries. The only exception that I know of is this TinyWhoop 333 from tinywhoop.com. This is a great battery, and you will get more flight time with this, but these are the only two options. There's a lot of other batteries out there you might choose from, but having this connector does kind of limit your options. It'll work fine though, and you can use this connector. The only other thing I would warn you is it is possible to get this connector plugged in the wrong way if you force it. So just always look for the flat side to the flat side and make sure you're plugging it in the right way. If I zoom in close, you can see the flight control board that's under here. This has the radio receiver and the video transmitter, everything all built into one board. The camera plugs in there, it's plug and play, the motors are plug and play, so everything you can swap out components, which is nice. Now this is not running Betaflight, it is running a version of Silverware modified by Betafpv for this purpose. So that means it's super simple, you don't need a computer or anything to configure it, but you also have fewer options than you would have in something like Betaflight. Now to me, the really interesting thing on this board are the new sensors on the side. This is an optical sensor that points down, and so that looks at the ground so that it can see if you are drifting this way. And this other one is a time of flight sensor, which gets an accurate measurement of the distance to the ground. Here's everything else in the kit. It comes with 2 of these batteries and this battery charger. Also, if you plug into where it says test, you can use this to check. 3.93 volts is how much is on this battery. But if you plug this into USB-C, you can charge 2 batteries at once. And it comes with a USB-C cable, USB-C to USB-A. It does not come with a power supply for USB. You're going to have to provide that yourself. And keep in mind that the batteries charge on USB-C, the controller charges, and the goggles charge, but there's just one of these cables. So if you want to charge all 3 at once, you're going to need more of these cables. And you're probably going to want more batteries as well. 2 batteries isn't very much. They each fly for only a few minutes. I think it only takes like 20 minutes to charge them in this charger, so it's not too bad, but I think you'll want more batteries than that. And once you have more batteries, you'll probably want a faster way to charge them. Betafpv does sell this charger. If you wanted a way to charge 6 at once, this is an option. It comes with some extra props, and this is a prop remover tool, but in that same bag with the props is this little Usbc adapter, which is kind of interesting. You see those pins on there? Those plug in to the drone right here so that you can add a USB plug. It doesn't normally have one, but this adds USB-C to the flight controller. And you don't need to use this for anything, but if you were going to flash the firmware, this is how you would do it. There's actually a PC-based configurator that can flash firmware, and you can customize rates. There's some other things you can do through that configurator. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if they've released that configurator publicly, but I assume that they plan to, because why else would they include this hardware? A beginner probably isn't going to need this for anything, but I wanted to mention it because, you know, people like to tinker, and I don't think there's ever been a silverware-based flight controller that's quite as easy to update as this one. Another thing I noticed is that the camera on this drone produces an image which is 4:3 aspect ratio. That's pretty typical, but the goggles are 16:9. So this is kind of like widescreen in the goggles with a more square image from the camera. And that means that the image in the goggles is actually stretched horizontally. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. So are you interested in winning this kit for yourself? Here's how that's going to work. To enter, the only thing you have to do is leave 1 comment, exactly 1 comment please, on this video. And you should mention something about the prize or winning the prize or something like that so that I know that you want to enter. Other people might be commenting just to say hi or ask a question, and that's totally cool too. So make sure you mention the prize in your comment. And that's literally the only thing you have to do. I'm not going to ask you to like and subscribe, although I'd love it if you do those things. I'm not going to ask you to post on social media or anything like that. You're welcome to do that if you want to. I don't like asking those things because I don't like it when other people ask it to me, and that's not really the point. The point is for me to find a new home for this drone with one of you who would enjoy it, or give it to somebody else who would enjoy it. So that's what we're doing. But here's the thing, I am offering this for free, but I am not going to pay the shipping cost. I want the winner to pay the actual shipping cost, and I'll tell you what that is if you won, okay? So be prepared to do that or don't enter to win, all right? Does it make sense? Now, some of you are going to ask, will I ship this overseas to other countries? And the answer is yes, as long as you are willing to pay that shipping cost and as long as you are aware of what it requires to import things into your country. The last time I did a giveaway, I had 3 winners in 3 different places. One of them got it pretty quickly and easily. 2 of them, it took like 2 months to get there, and at least in one case, one of the recipients was charged import fees from the customs department in their country. I can't control that, so hopefully you know what that is like. If you are willing to deal with that and you're willing to pay for the shipping, then I'm willing to print the label and put it in the mail. Sound good? Thanks for watching to the end of this video. I hope it's been interesting and helpful for you. And again, look down in the video description text. I'll have some links and more information down there if that is helpful to you. And if you like this kind of content, check out the other videos on my channel, because I've got tons of videos, especially micro drones flying inside and outside. I just have a ton of fun with this hobby and I enjoy sharing my experiences with you. So check that out. And of course, I've got more projects coming, so stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed this. Take care. I'll see you next time.